சார் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாங்க சார். ஹெச்ஓடி சார்.
So shall we start, sir? Good morning, everybody. A warm welcome to today's chief guest, Mr. Ratna Rao, who's a senior director, Samsung R&D Institute, to this webinar. And I wish to welcome all the participants, principals, HODs, faculty members, and all the students, PG scholars, various professionals from industry. Once again, a warm welcome to all the participants joining in webinar. Now I invite our principal to address the gathering.
So good morning. On behalf of our respected chairman, sir, members of the management, all the faculty members, students, on my own behalf, I wholeheartedly thank and welcome our proud alumni, Mr. Ratnakar Rao, Senior Director, Engineering, Samsung R&D, India, Bangalore, and all the elite participants for joining in this FDP webinar conducted by Electronics and Communication Engineering Department of our institution on the topic role of technology in a post-COVID world. My dear participants, today's situation we never ever expected, but to make use of this hard situation with the strong support of our management and the sincere and dedicated efforts of our faculty and with the support of eminent resource persons from industry, academia, and also our proud alumni across the world, we have been organizing faculty development programs and webinars for the benefit of all the faculty members across the country and also outside the country, and also for our students. So far, we have organized more than 200 webinars during this lockdown period. My dear participants, hope you are all doing fine and safe during this pandemic period. To enrich our knowledge, so today we have eminent resource person and also our proud alumni, first batch passed out student from our RMK Engineering College EC department, Mr. Ratnakar Rao. On behalf of all of us, I once again welcome Mr. Ratnakar Rao for accepting our invitation to conduct this webinar for the benefit of all the faculty members and students. I would like to share some of the important information, including the major achievements of our institution for all the participants. Our RMK Engineering College, established in the year 1995, situated at Kavaraipetai, Gumidipudi Taluk, at the distance of 30 kilometers from Chennai. The college is managed by Lakshmi Kantamal Educational Trust. And we are at the forefront of engineering education consistently among top 10 engineering colleges across the state. In the year 2019, our graduate percentage is 89.6, and 2019 batch overall result is 93.82. And to provide placement opportunity for our students, there are 200 plus regular recruiters visiting our campus, including core companies, and we have been consistently maintaining 85% annual placement conversion. In the Devon campus placement 2020 batch, totally 816 offers issued to the students of RMK group of institutions by Cognizant, TCS, Wipro, and Infosys. Our management team, consisting of our visionary chairman through R.S. Muniratnam, founder chairman, a dynamic personality, a great visionary and philanthropist, a former member of Tamil Nadu Assembly, elected 3 times in succession, instrumental in setting up industrial estate, SIMCOT, and Institute of Road Transport at Kumdipundi. At present, he is holding the post of President of Consortium of Self-Financing Professional Arts and Science Colleges in Tamil Nadu and Chief Patron of All India Federation of Self-Financing Technical Institutions. He is also honorary advisor for Youth Welfare and Sports Development Department, Government of Tamil Nadu, for his outstanding achievements in the field of education for the rural community. He has received Vidya Ratna Award. Our management team, consisting of our chairperson, madam, respected chairperson, madam, respected director, sir, our vice chairman, sir, secretary, sir, vice chairperson, madam, and the management trustee. First approval by AICT India 1995, RMKC is in the completion of 25 years of excellence in technical education, affiliated to Anna University, Chennai, and all the UG programs of our institution are accredited by NBA New Delhi and accredited by NAC with A+ grade. Tata Consultancy Services accredited our institution with B grade, and total sanctioned intake of 3,228 with a faculty student ratio of 1:15. And we have 7 UG programs at present, and also applied for getting approval from Anna University and AICT for the 2 new branches starting from the academic year 2020 and 21. BE in Civil Engineering, Computer Science and Engineering, EEE, ECE, E&I, Mechanical Engineering, and BTech Information Technology. The new courses to be started with the approval of AICT and Anna University starting from the year 2021 is BTech Artificial Intelligence and Data Science and BTech Computer Science and Business System. This branch is powered by Tata Consultancy Services. We have also applied for getting autonomous status from Anna University and UGC for the academic year 2021, which is under process. We have 3 PG programs in Applied Electronics, Computer Science, and Power Electronics, and 6 departments are recognized research center by Anna University, and there are more than 60 research supervisors guiding more than 150 research scholars in our institution to pursue PhD program. With respect to achievements and recognition, we have received the best overall performance by ISTE in the year 2008. And with respect to NIRF ranking, we have been maintaining the position within top 200 institutions in the India ranking NIRF by MHRD Government of India. So for the year 2020, the rank released by Honorable MHRD Minister yesterday, we have got 155th position across the country out of 200 institutions identified by MHRD Government of India. With respect to cleanliness, hygiene, maintenance inside the campus, we have got 6th position across the country in the Swachhta ranking by MHRD Government of India. With respect to Industry Connect, in the AICTE CAI survey of Best Industry Linked Institute, starting from the year 2015, we have received for ECE department, and in 2018, CAC and IT department, and in 2019, Mechanical department. From the inception, so 955 university rank holders, including 23 gold medals from Anna University, Chennai. And the graduate percentage is 96.11. Total number of 14,554 graduated from our institution from inception. We have a very strong industry connectivity. In collaboration with industries, including core companies, we have established 14 Center of Excellence laboratories in the latest technology areas. And NAC has approved our institution to mentor 10 other institutions to get NAC accreditation. We have also received Food Safety Award, Best Institutional Food Safety Award by Government of Tamil Nadu. And we have also organized TEDx during 2019. In the year 2018, our institution is identified as one of the nodal centers to organize Smart India Hackathon 2018 out of 28 nodal centers identified by MHRD Government of India. And in Smart India Hackathon 2018, 2 teams from our institution got first prize, and in 2019, totally 3 teams, including 2 teams in software edition and 1 team in hardware edition, received the first prize in the Smart India Hackathon 2019. So our students have also received Vishwakarma Award from AICTE in the AICTE Chhatra Vishwakarma Award given by Honorable Vice President of India. Our institution adopted 5 villages in and around our institution under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan scheme. Our institution is rated with 4-star rating by MHRD's Institutional Innovation Council and MSME Incubation Center approved by MSME Government of India, ECEL approved by Government of Tamil Nadu. All the leading magazines across the country have given top 10 and top 50 and top 100 across the country and across the state in the year 2019 and 20. So with respect to research and development, industry consultancy and publications by the faculty members, total research project worth of 10.52 crores received by our faculty members and students. And with respect to industry consultancy, we have received 1.14 crores from the starting. And total number of 1,348 research papers published by faculty members in the refereed journals, national and international journals in the past 3 years. Our students have also received Best Student and Best Project Award by ISTE, Institute of Engineers, IETE, CSI, TCS, Cognizant, and reputed institutions and organizations, including Cognizant Big Idea Challenge Contest winners. And we have established COE laboratories in collaboration with industries in the areas of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, big data analytics, cloud computing, front-end engineering, and with respect to EC department, telecom and embedded systems in collaboration with Wipro, automotive electronics in collaboration with KPIT Pune, a factory automation laboratory completely sponsored by Mitsubishi Electric India, and building management system in collaboration with JCI Pune. With respect to training and placement, all of our students are provided with 360-degree structured training program to enhance their knowledge and to get placement in companies. And with respect to 2020 batch, the number of students percentage placement is 88%, and total number of companies visited till March is 139. And our students have also offered with higher salary package offers by Amazon with a salary of 28 lakhs per annum by 2 students and 17.5 lakhs per annum by 1 student, and 2 students with 14 lakhs per annum by Amazon. We have a very strong alumni association, and recently during the last year, our chairman visited United States to inaugurate USA alumni chapter, and he has conducted alumni meeting at 5 different places, and around 500 proud alumni across US participated in this meeting with their family members. So with respect to infrastructure and facilities, we have a ECEL to promote entrepreneurial skills among the students, approved by EDI Anna University, and also MSME Incubator. Our management is also supporting the students to become entrepreneurs, to develop innovative products that can lead to startups. So far, 23 students have started their own startups in our MSME and ECEL incubators. And Center for Higher Education, which is very much useful to all the students who would like to pursue their higher studies in India and abroad. And every year, there are 15 to 20% of students joined in reputed institutions in India and abroad. Center for Foreign Languages. So we have offered Japanese language training program for our students. More than 50 offers issued by Outsourcing Corporation and KJ International with a pay scale of 24 lakhs yen per annum. And Center for IPR and Patents to promote patenting by the students and faculty members. So far, 25 patents filed by our students and faculty members, and in which 15 patents got published. And we are also offering NPTEL and Coursera courses through the Center for Online Learning for the benefit of all the faculty members and students. We have Center for Faculty Development to enrich teaching and learning process. And we have a very strong computer center with 1,080 computers with the latest configuration systems and required bandwidth, Wi-Fi enabled campus, and also we are also having smart classrooms. We have a well-stacked library with 99,314 books in 26,809 titles. We have a digital library and health center, full-time doctor is available, transport facility. We are operating buses from all major routes, covering all the places in and around Chennai city. We have a very good sports facilities to promote sports and games activities for the benefit of our students. We have a standard athletic track, and our students every year used to receive a lot of prizes in the state level, national level tournaments. hostel facilities also provided to our students. There are 3 blocks boys hostel and 3 blocks girls hostel, and general amenities including parents waiting hall, exclusive dining hall for students with 1,500 capacity to provide uninterruptible power supply, full capacity genset is available, and effluent treatment plant for providing water for gardening purpose, and RO plant to provide purified water to all the faculty members and students. And safety precautions are also being taken care by the management. Our RMK group of institutions consisting of 8 institutions, including 3 engineering colleges, RMK Engineering College, RMD Engineering College, RMK College of Engineering and Technology, and 1 polytechnic, Durga Devi Polytechnic College, and 4 schools, 1 RMK Matriculation School situated at Kavaripettai, RMK Residential Senior Secondary School situated at Kavaripettai, and RMK Senior Secondary School situated at Tiruvekadu near Chennai, and RMK Parasala situated at Kavaripettai. Thank you for the given opportunity. Once again, I thank and welcome all the allied participants and our proud alumni and resource person for today's webinar, Mr. Ratnakar Rao, for this webinar arranged by EC department. I would like to thank EC HOD and all the faculty members of EC department for arranging such a nice webinar for the benefit of all the faculty members and students across the state and outside the state. I also thank the technical in charges, Mr. Arthanarishwaran, system admin of our institution, to provide this connectivity and also platform for conducting this webinar with large gatherings. For further details, please visit our website www.rmkec.ac.in. Thank you. Thank you for the given opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Sir, for briefing the important features of RMK Engineering College. Thank you very much. Let me be brief the important features of our department, Electronics and Communication Engineering. So once again, a warm welcome to Sri Ratna Rao, our proud alumnus of RMK Engineering College, presently in Samsung R&D Institute, Bangalore, as a Senior Director Engineering. So our department, let me brief about our department. So our department started in the year 1995 with a sanctioned intake of 60 and improved to 180 today. And we have postgraduate course on applied electronics with the sanctioned intake of 18. So we are the Anna University recognized research center also. So our UG program is accredited by NBA. There are 10 faculty members completed PhD, 13 faculty members are pursuing PhD in our department, and we are maintaining 1:15 faculty student ratio. There are milestones in our department starting from the year 1995 till today, and there are so many achievements and awards received for the department. Particularly in our department, 62,15,000 worth funded projects we received from various government agencies, particularly in the year 2018-19. And our faculty members involved in the consultancy in various industries, so worth of 4,05,000 rupees in the year 2018-19 recently. So our department members and students published 99 papers in SCA and Web of Science Index journals with highest, and we participated in our 4 startups we have in our department, and we received ACTCA Survey Award in the year 2015 and received Cisco Networking Academic Award for the 10 years of active participation. We received Engineering College Students Chapter Award from IEA in the year 2018-19 and IEEE largest student rank award for the academic year 2015-16. And our students won the several awards, like the winner trophy check amount of rupees 50,000 for the outstanding project presentation at Smart India Hackathon 2019 at Bhubaneswar, and IEA Best Student Award, IEA Best Paper Award, IEA Best Academic Performance Award, and Kalam Young Achiever Award. This kind of awards our students are receiving each and every year. And our students participated in so many Smart India Hackathon, joining in other department students also, and received the cash prize of 1 lakh rupees, and participated in Tech Mahindra Iris Hackfest contest in the year 2019 and received 51,000 cash prize award, and so many other awards also our students received, like IST Best Student Award, IST Best Project Award, and all. And our faculty members achieved so many awards and recognition. I listed few. Dr. Elvin Sandramani, our department professor, received the Lifetime Achievement Award by IST. Myself received Best Teaching Faculty Award and Best Faculty Award, and Professor Dr. Padmavati received Outstanding Faculty Award from Venus International Foundations, and our Professor Dr. M. Somasundaram selected as mentor to Atal Tinkering Lab for the nearby matriculation school. And we received so many research projects, like the development of digital formwork pressure monitoring system using census joining with the civil department for the funding agency device development program DST, and DST Tide also we received 26 lakhs, and AST RPS and various other IEDC funding we received. And our faculty members joined in various industries and received the worth of 4 lakhs 5,000 rupees of consultancy projects. And there are noteworthy projects carried out by our students in our department research lab and won several awards, like the Tech Mahindra and Cash Award from IEEE and ARM Design Contest Award also. So we conducted every year, we conducted the various training programs starting from the first year till the final year. Because of this, our placements records improved from 85.19 in the year 2013-17 to improved to 90.32 the present batch 2016-20. There are the regular recruiters Cognizant, Infosys, Wipro, TCS, KPIT, HCL, Zogo, Ernst & Young, Amazon, and Tata Elxsi. Several students got placed in these reputed industries. And we established 6 Center of Excellences lab, like in support of the industries like KPIT, Wipro, Inotex, Infosys, and our students are trained in various technologies using these laboratories. So the outcome, 8 students from EC department placed with 24 lakhs per annum, and 141 students placed in Wipro Telecom COE. From artificial intelligence COE, there are 37 students placed and 95 students placed in KPIT and embedded system. And I like to introduce few of our proud alumni, including our proud alumni, today's chief guest, Ratna Rao. Leelavati, she is now the district revenue officer at Chennai Corporation. Kamalakannan, IBM Global Solutions. Sendil is assistant commissioner income tax, and Selva Ganapati is assistant commandant of police. And our proud alumni in various higher education in abroad, like National University of Singapore, Sandeep is doing MS there, and Gautam is doing MS in University of Texas, and Satish is doing PhD in Delft University of Technology, Netherlands. So now I'm happy to introduce our chief guest, Ratna Rao. So he completed BE in the year 1999 in our department. So he secured university's 7th rank and received, at the time of studying, he received the honor of Pamela Wegertroman Medal for the best outgoing student and distinguished alumni award from our college. And he completed MTech in telecommunication system from IIT Kharagpur. He completed MBA from University of Leicester, UK. And currently he is the senior director of engineering in the mobile communication R&D wing of Samsung. Specializes in the research and development of wireless communication and data networking protocols, manages the Samsung 5G smartphone launches for global markets. He has more than 20 years of experience in the telecommunication industry and closely participated in the wireless evolution from 2nd generation technology to today's the 5th generation technology. And he filed more than 30 international patents with 10 grants he received so far. And he delivered several invited talks and guest lectures, and he co-authored a book on long-term evolution, the overview of the 4th generation. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation and joining this today's webinar, and going to deliver the topic on the role of technology in the post-COVID world. Thank you once again. Thank you very much. Now I hand over session to Mr. Ratna Rao.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all able to hear me
Good morning.
clearly. Firstly, my heartfelt thanks to my alma mater, RMK Engineering College, for inviting me to deliver this webinar. It's really heartening to see all the accomplishments of our students and all the milestones achieved by the college. I'm very happy to talk to you all today. So it's a totally unimaginable world outside, actually. If you see the way the world changed in the last 3 months, who would have imagined that a tiny virus would challenge the might of the mankind in the 21st century? Yet it did challenge. The battle against coronavirus is in progress. And as we know, technology is giving its own helping hand in tiding through this crisis. If technology was playing a support role until now, in the post-COVID world, it's going to offer the very oxygen required for the survival. In the next 45 minutes or so, I'll be taking you through the scenarios that emerge in the post-COVID world and the role technology is going to play for many of our industries and sectors. As technologists, it's our imperative that we find technology-based solutions to the challenges
Hello, Ratna Rao.
Yes, sir. I think it's first time to lose your connection.
Okay.
So I hope you all can hear me.
Yeah, now we can hear.
Yeah, now it's clear.
Okay. So sorry about the inconvenience. So yeah, sorry all.
Yeah, you please start.
Yes. So the idea is to understand the opportunities that are emerging so that we all can equip ourselves, both from the research point of view, as well as from instructing our students' point of view, so that all of us can be future ready. So every crisis that pushes us down also presents an opportunity to rise and shine. This is the most important thing we all should remember as we pass through this crisis. Our recent history is full of such examples. For example, take the case of Y2K crisis. I mean, many of the listeners, I'm not sure whether they were born when this crisis was active, but that provided the much required break for the Indian IT industry to arrive on the global stage. Likewise, if you know the kind of water crisis countries like Israel faced at their inception, it is actually their genius that they have invented drip irrigation technology and stood as a role model for many of us. Likewise, you look around and you will find so many opportunities where the crisis is driving the birth of new technologies. So in this current time, the crisis knocking our door happens to be COVID-19. Of course, there's no doubt the COVID imposed lockdown is really causing misery for a lot of people. We should not underplay that fact. But undoubtedly, it will bring so many new opportunities and open so many new doors for all of us. Are we in a position to recognize them? So that is the central theme of this talk. Let us see how some of our key sectors are impacted by COVID-19. So this will tell us what scenarios it throws open in the post-COVID world, and then we can consider how to solve those scenarios or address those situations with the help of technology. Take the case of education. Until recently, education meant classroom and classroom meant education. The trend of online tuitions is limited to a very niche population. And fast forward to the COVID era, we all know that everyone, right from the kindergartner to the postgraduate, has moved online seeking education. Of course, millions of our rural brethren may not have caught up to this trend of online education yet, but eventually online content, if not by internet, at least by TV broadcast, will reach all of them. Can you imagine how many digital content development opportunities that it will create? And can you imagine the number of gadgets like laptops, tablets, smartphones, speakers that will be needed in all our households to make use of these online opportunities? And as you know, all these gadgets are now not only for the adults, but they become the essential tools for every student. Consider the business potential there and consider the opportunities that will come up. Take the case of health and wellness sector. It too, like education, has huge potential to make an offline to online transformation for a majority of our health and wellness needs. There is a huge demand for online content. For example, all the fitness classes can be live streamed. All the non-essential medical consultations can be held through telemedicine. And even people too, they are going to adopt new healthier lifestyles with the help of smartwatches, fitness trackers, and diagnostic gadgets at home. These are all giving up new situations for the technology to solve the problems in the post-COVID world. When was the last time you availed a public service? Right? The public service could be a property registration, or to file a complaint at a local police station, applying for a passport, or applying for Aadhaar card. So as you would have seen, already a lot of these services are actually digital because of the rapid digital governance initiatives that are being adopted in the last few years. but still the interaction between the citizen and the government is still face to face, right? Imagine what will happen if the last mile, if the interface between the citizen and the government also gets digitized with the help of advanced authentication mechanisms, wherein each customer, each citizen can avail all the public services from his home. It is possible with the help of these latest technologies. And once this happens, don't you think, except for the essential services, the rest of the government too can actually work from home? Won't this result in huge savings for the government? Manufacturing sector, we all know that it's already making rapid strides in automating the factories and making production less and less dependent on labor. Nevertheless, during the COVID time, most of the situation had to shut down because the widespread use of IoT is not yet established widely. So this will get a big boost and the automation trend will increase and the industrial IoT will power the remote operation of manufacturing facilities. But can you think whether the supply chains can be operated remotely? Because manufacturing relies a lot on transport, logistics, supply of raw materials, and taking out the warehousing the production produced goods. So I can't think of how this can be solved or how this can be automated, but let's think about it. That's still an open problem to me. Let's talk about banking. As we know, largely, I mean, most of us conduct all our banking transactions online. It's already digital. But when it comes to the finance part, it has not yet gone digital. Think about it. I mean, how can banks give loan to a person or a company without knowing the history of the person or without seeing the person or a facility? How do they know if the loan taken is being used for a specific purpose? How do they assess the risk of repayment and the asset performance? If all this has to go online, there will be a lot of intelligence and automation required in the processes. So there are going to be huge opportunities in that area, like intelligent risk management, automated asset tracking, and recovery mechanisms. Those of us who are fortunate to be in the information technology and information technology enabled services, we largely emerged unscathed during this COVID lockdown because of the already prevalent practice of remote working or work from home. So when the lockdown has hit hard, these industries survived by completely adapting near total work from home practice. So this trend will only deepen and expand because this is also going to result in cost savings for the companies. I'm going to talk about a couple of more sectors before we jump into the solutions technology has to offer. Agriculture, usually probably forgotten that it's very, very important for our nation or for any nation. But during lockdown, I think this sector, the importance of this sector, everybody understood because it reminded people that what are the bare minimum essentials required to survive. They all are provided by our farmers. So this is the time to shift gears for the agricultural sector in the post-COVID world. There is the possibility of online marketplaces already. There are so many government initiatives encouraging the farm produce to be purchased online. But the trend I have noticed is farm to home supply chain. Even during the lockdowns, many of us residing in gated communities, we realized that we're able to place orders over WhatsApp to the nearby farms, and the farmer is directly delivering the produce to our homes. You'd have also heard of the news that JioMart has started accepting grocery orders over a messenger, right? So this will allow people to connect with their local kirana stores, but without physically needing to go to the store. E-commerce, of course, was bustling and booming before and growing at a rapid pace. It is definitely expected to grow further. But as you all know, during the lockdown, even e-commerce deliveries too were stopped. Is there any way out for this? And can the deliveries be contactless? Well, there are some solutions being worked on, like this delivery with drones. So I really don't think it is feasible in the near future. So let's think about this as another open problem for the e-commerce industry. So now we have gone through the impacts and the post-COVID situations emerging in some of the key industries: e-commerce, agriculture, IT, banking, manufacturing, public services, healthcare, and education. So if you recap all the post-COVID situations in your mind, certain few key themes emerge out of all this. What are the key themes? Let's consolidate. So it's definitely now clear that the post-COVID world demands social distance, right? Each and every interaction that involved touch before should now become contactless. So the way we operate our devices, the way we operate our machines, plants, everything need to move away from a touch-based interaction. This is one key theme that's emerging from the COVID era: distance, contactless, right? So now the second situation we have seen is that every sector need to carry large part of its operation in a remote manner, which means a lot of things have to go digital and be operatable online from anywhere. So just think about the capacity of the networks needed and the vast number of devices needed to make this happen. It will really be mind-boggling, but that's where the opportunity for the IT industry resides: going digital. Everything, every industry, every sector. The third key emerging theme we have seen is that every industry need to ensure some kind of automation in their processes, which also means that some amount of intelligence also needs to be built in each and every process. So to me, the key takeaways for the post-COVID world are how to go contactless to maintain social distance, how to be online completely, go digital, how to automate the processes with intelligence. Let's discuss each of these themes from a technology perspective. Yeah. So if we have to eliminate the sense of touch, what is the next sense that can come to your rescue? I think it will be your vision. In the absence of touch, we should be able to do a lot of things with vision. And the same thing when it's done at scale with the help of computers. The area of computer vision is going to be very, very significant in the post-COVID era. So think about this. If a technician has to operate the plant remotely, or a technician has to control the machinery without needing to touch it, there should be techniques or technologies where it can be done through gestures, right? So gesture recognition is one of the key area, and it can be a very good interface in the absence of touch. Right? So let's take the other case. For example, your local mall wants to reopen and wants to allow consumers only those who can wear masks. Right? Is it really possible to touch screen everybody physically? There can be other technology solutions. Right? For example, in the image I'm showing here, there are solutions possible where you can quickly identify from a crowd of people with the desired characteristics what you're looking for. Right? So all these solutions are already available either in some research institutions or with big corporates or governments. So now our challenge is how to make it available for our local businesses. Think about this. Presently, most companies or offices, for example, they use finger scan biometrics to record the attendance. There is an alternative. Now you should be able to do your biometric using iris scans, that too using the regular smartphone cameras without needing any sophisticated cameras, with the help of image processing techniques. So likewise, if our temples, our places of worship, our community centers, if they want to allow people, after ensuring they don't have a fever, thermal imaging techniques will come to the rescue. So these are a few examples how the discipline of computer vision will help in ensuring contactless operation of several of our industries. So let's think about how to bring the solutions to local use cases and make it available to our local businesses. If you thought that interacting with machines and devices with gestures is not a good idea, because it's very difficult to go beyond a certain number of gestures, then I agree with you, you're right. For interacting with machines or communicating seamlessly, vision may not be the only interface or may not be the best interface. For this, machines need to be able to understand the written text and spoken words and take actions based on the understanding. So natural language processing is already a very hot area, and a lot of research is going on based on various machine learning and deep learning models. And speech processing too has advanced to a certain extent, where you see that voice assistants like Alexas and Bixby's, they're able to understand and act on our spoken words. So companies like Google, they are already providing toolkits, to process the speech, convert speech from text or synthesize speech from text, and also allowing the translation either within the same language or from language to language. Can you imagine the power of such technologies? For example, availability of such a plugin will help even a semi-literate farmer to understand the order he got in English from a remote community. This will break a lot of barriers in the remote mode, and at the same time, when you interact with your machines and devices, you can go free of touch. So that's about the first theme of contactless. So the two key technologies, computer vision, natural language processing, and speech processing, are going to play a huge role in the post-COVID world. So the second biggest takeaway we saw is everything online, everything remote. What do you need for this? do we really have time to install the broadband networks all over the country, to nook and corner of the country? We don't. Wherever the wide broadband cannot reach, wireless broadband should be the way to equip even the remotest corner of our country and bring them online. So that is the reason the rural broadband is very, very important. So that even the farming sector and the public services in the rural areas can also go online. But where are the capacities? Our networks are already choked. We are consuming huge amounts of bandwidth for our work from homes, for our online teaching, for our online gaming, video streamings. So the network capacities are being choked. So this is where the emergence of 5G is going to play a prominent role in expanding the network capacities. So those of you who study telecommunication already understand that 5G provides this capacity by being able to operate across several frequency bands. It can operate in your 4G frequency bands. It can operate in several new bands that are getting available, including the millimeter wave bands, which have huge free spectrum available. By harnessing all this spectrum to use, we can exponentially increase the network capacities and take all our services online. So just as a recap, the capabilities 5G offers, it can offer up to 20 Gbps of peak data rates in a given cell. The radio latency will also get drastically reduced up to 1 millisecond. So a lot of your services like the telemedicine can operate at a very low network latency. At the same time, for the initiatives like the smart city, smart agriculture, which needs so many gadgets connected to the network simultaneously, we need a network which can handle millions of connections at the same time. So the existing networks cannot do that, and 5G offers the promise as well. So what else do you need? How can you take things online when so many of your things at home or at office or in your factories are not cellular? They cannot go mobile. They don't have connectivity. So this is where all the premises need to get equipped with some form of the broadband connectivity, which may come through mobile hotspots, which may come by deploying small cells. So with the help of all this, we will be able to seamlessly migrate to virtual classrooms, virtual meetings, and what in future is being called as the telepresence. As we saw, health and wellness is going to be a key consumer of this new network capacities that are going to be added, so that all your non-essential consultations can happen online. Okay, so who else apart from the telecommunication networks? Which other technologies are important for going completely online? Yes, there you go. All the cloud related technologies are going to be very, very, very critical, because when you take each and every business online, the amount of information that needs to be exchanged, the content that needs to be stored, and that needs to be available at the touch of fingertip from any device around the world, you need vast amounts of cloud infrastructure. And that's where we are going to see opportunities in the area of servers operations, edge cloud, and low latency edge networks, mobile edge computing, and the data centers. But remember one thing, there is a huge risk involved for businesses and as individuals for all of us in taking all our content online. And yes, you guessed it right. There is this biggest threat of information security. So that's going to be a huge challenge for the technologists to be able to make the online transactions safe and secure. So all these businesses need to be protected from the hackers or unethical operators. So that's where information security and cloud operations are going to be very, very, very critical for the post-COVID world. Okay, let's talk a bit about automation. We already know a lot of our automobile plants are getting automated. What else do we need to do in this area? We need to bring in the element of remote operation. And that remote operation gets enabled with the help of industrial IoT deployment, with the help of sensor networks, and all the facilities like remote surveillance and the remote operations. So in the area of manufacturing, these are going to be key technologies that are going to dominate in the coming years. Okay. We also talked about the need of intelligence when we make processes automated. So this is where, when we talked about the prominence of the cloud platforms. So these cloud platforms already offer so many tools with which you can build intelligence into it. So we need to make our digital transactions safe and secure, and that is possible by imparting intelligence. So this intelligence can come in the form of blockchain, where you track each and every transactions in a blockchain way to ensure the authenticity of a transaction. Likewise, financial institutions can apply intelligence and automate their loan disbursement process or recovery process. So again, as you see, the key takeaway seems to be that all the essential ingredients, all the essential technologies which will help us in future are already available. Either they are in their formative state or they are really mature, but needs to be deployed at scale. But we have something to work on, right? So keeping all these trends in mind, now we have seen the challenges faced by several industries and the key themes that are coming out and the key technologies that are going to be helpful and playing a prominent role, right? The telecommunication networks, cloud and server operations, information security, computer vision, and natural language processing. So to sum it up, if you ask me, what will be the top 3 trends which need to be followed or which are very, very attractive for the post-COVID world? Here are my top 3 picks. Pick number 1, I think we will slowly move towards a virtual experience economy, wherein with the help of augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality, we are going to do a lot of our transactions. Imagine, without needing to step out of your house, if you can do your shopping, if you can experience a tourist destination, if you can play a game remotely, or if you can converse with your friends as if they are sitting live next to you. All this are very much going to be essentials if you need to stay isolated and not come into contact with people. So hence, AR, VR, MR will result in a virtual experience economy. So that's my pick number 1. And pick number 2, as we saw for everything, in fact, you would have seen at the beginning of my talk, I mean, I lost the connection. So there is a serious need for resilient connectivity. Yes, we all are using our mobile broadbands. We are all having Wi-Fi hotspots at home. We are getting good broadbands. But how to make it resilient? Can 5G bring in that resilience? Will having multiple subscriptions, can I have, say, 2 broadband connections at home? Will it help? And to avoid unnecessary power failures, should everybody have a UPS at their home? And what kind of accessories do we need? Do we need speakers? Do we need headphones, microphones to make this online content delivery very attractive? So all these are going to be very, very essential ingredients in taking things online. So resilient connectivity is going to play a very, very important role. And that's my pick number 2. And lastly, this is my biggest hope. Because of this crisis brought up by COVID, and because people started working from home, there is a great potential to have borderless workforce. If you are working from home, and if you have a resilient connectivity, and if you have ability to experience your workplace virtually, why not work from anywhere? Work from outdoors, work from indoors, work at the place of your choice. And all your content is in the cloud. So you can access the content from anywhere. You can start working from anywhere. It's going to be a new world. And with this, I think can spur a new set of opportunity for the Indian IT industry. Because once you can operate high-end technologies sitting remotely, once you can provide high-end solutions by working from anywhere, people abroad should think of India as a serious destination to transfer a lot of new work. Hence, I would think borderless workforce and working from anywhere is going to be the third topmost trend in the post-COVID world. So with this, I would like to just share some of the resources for our faculty members and for our researchers to go through. Because as I mentioned, right now, a lot of resources are already available. A lot of solutions are already open source. For example, if you want to train an image processing engine, the image database for training your model is already available. Likewise, the natural language toolkit is available. Right? So we can already build a lot of solutions based on natural language processing, computer vision, AI in wireless, chatbots for connecting the consumers to the small businesses. So all these things are possible because the ingredients are all around. So as technologists, we need to bring these ingredients into our institutions, build some products or solutions based on some ideas useful for the local businesses. That's going to make our communities very strong in the coming years. So with this, I thank you all very much for the time you have given for me. Thank you very much for hearing out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ratna Rao. We have question answers posted in the chat box.
Right, sir. Let me see if I can read some of the Q&A. Yes, I think somebody mentioned drones can be used for delivery of all items as they have their own limitations. Yeah, I agree. As I mentioned, that's a trend which say companies like Amazon or DHL, they're trying out delivery by drones. But there are still a lot more technical challenges. Like, for example, a simple example, how to protect them from physical damage and how to ensure that they deliver the goods to the right person. How do you authenticate at the time of delivery? And how do you ensure that the drone comes back safely and nobody damages it physically on the way? So there are a lot more challenges. I agree that it's a long way to go. So wherever there is no fixed trend, I'm sure that's also an opportunity for ideation. So somebody mentioned post-COVID technology challenges for teachers in online classes. I agree. I think I'm seeing it live because even my own children attend online classes, and I can also see or hear the challenges from my colleagues and friends who are teachers. So yeah, there are challenges, but as I told, resilient connectivity will help you to keep your connection stable, and good quality broadband will ensure that the quality of your content is clear and reliable. And also, if you see the latest news, there are technologies coming out. Like for example, Google has announced the technology which can mask out all the background noise during any online call, right? So all the background noises can be muted using the regular audio processing techniques. So, so there are technology solutions for some of these challenges, but that is a good area to explore for the universities first to solve their own problems. Uh, for online classes, I think that's a good starting point. Yes, I think somebody asked a question, how hardware-based laboratories will be conducted during the post-COVID condition. Example, machines in the electrical engineering. So yeah, this is where I agree. I mean, there is, wherever physical things are involved, definitely at least at the time of deployment, you need a physical involvement. But the question is, once deployed, can we operate things remotely? So that seems to be possible even for hardware-based laboratories. The moment they are connected through sensor networks, the moment they are connected through IoT, and if you have interfaces like this, say speech-based commands, right, gesture-based commands, then it is possible to operate them remotely. In fact, in the area of virtual reality, there is another trend that is picking up. A lot of these laboratories, right, where you need to explore the machines physically, like what is the layout, where are the controls, which button will activate which actuator. So all these things now people have converted into virtual reality sessions, and they're enabling students to watch it in their VR headsets. So they can actually, it's as if you're seeing it physically, and you can actually feel it and operate it with your fingers. So those trends will emerge. Okay, so somebody asked a very good question. Actually, I had this in my mind. How do you think the tourism and real estate industry can survive? Very, very good point, actually, because frankly, if at all there are two industries that are really completely devastated by this COVID-19. So one is the food and hospitality industry, all the restaurants and hotels. And the second is tourism and transport. Right? You can imagine all the tourist destinations, even when they open, whether people will feel safe and secure to visit them. That's a challenge. Likewise, even when your local restaurant opens up, will you feel confident to go there and sit amidst the crowd and eat? So, so here is where I think one trend I'm seeing already, just hearing bits and pieces in the news, that the customers need to get confidence about the facility they're going to visit. Like for example, if I need to visit a restaurant, I need to be confident that, hey, these people are following all the practices in a safe and secure way. So that's the reason I heard some restaurants have started streaming their kitchens. They show the environment to their kitchen and the serving environment to the rest of the world, so that people can see that, oh, I think all the practices are being followed. This is a good place to go. So likewise, I'm sure even tourism, I think they need to make use of this virtual reality, to give glimpses of the tourist destination to the people and make people comfortable to visit the destination. So I think live streaming and VR is going to play a role there. Yeah, if we use online lifestyle, won't the radiation affect the kinds and the environment a lot? I agree. There is a lot of concern, even especially for the children who are taking online classes. What amount of time, screen time is a good time? There are concerns. And secondly, of course, there are these concerns surrounding the cellular radiation. So wherever there is a concern, of course, that's where the regulators will step in, to set up the safe limits. Like for example, you would have heard yesterday, government of Karnataka said that until grade 5, I mean, no online classes. You can go for maybe pre-recorded lessons, but no fixed online classes. So like that for radiation and all, public agencies like TRAI in India or FCC in USA, they set the safe radiation limits so that all the equipments operate according to those limits. So yeah, but the concern is genuine, and definitely with a lot of information, those concerns can be laid to rest. And wherever there are challenges, like for example, I'm sure some of you are working in the area of microwave antennas and radiation. In fact, millimeter wave is an essential ingredient of 5G. So there were concerns on, okay, what kind of radiation will it cause, and is it safe to operate and all. But with the help of very, very efficient antenna techniques, all those effects were really, really significantly minimized. And that's why now it's ready for the commercial use. So what do you think, the tourism and real estate? Yeah, somebody exactly. I think you already gave the answer basically. Can augmented reality or virtual reality help? Absolutely. And in a community with unequal distribution of resources, how do you think students who can't afford gadgets to learn can cope up? I think that's a very good point. I think this is where I mentioned actually. So some of our, definitely, most of the affluent people living in urban areas, so they are getting their education through online classes. But maybe online classes are not possible in a lot of rural India. So, but there are other possibilities. Like for example, if you know, the TV penetration in India is quite high. Actually, I heard some 86% of the households have TV compared to some 40% of mobile broadband. So probably some of this content, online classes, should be delivered through either national broadcast television channels or through some local city cable kind of channels, right? So that the information reaches to everybody. And yeah, second point, I mean, how can students afford these gadgets? That's a very good point. Again, that's where even the companies are also thinking. They're trying to bring out new business models. Like for example, say at Samsung, I heard recently there is Samsung Finance Plus, which is an opportunity to give loans to students, which can be repaid on over a longer term to buy the gadgets needed for their education. Technological advances have already built a virtual wall between two people sitting in the same room. Don't you think this is going to widen the gap? Yes. So this is the challenge, of course. I mean, as we all know, human beings are social animals. So without meeting people, or without having that cup of coffee with your friends, you don't feel like you have spent the day. So what we are talking about, largely all the solutions are specific to our professional lives, the way we conduct our businesses, the way we operate our industries. So naturally, when it comes to personal life, I'm sure it's a lot of it is based on the trust, right? Mutual trust, whether you can trust the other person's proximity. But even then, for people, of course, who are not in the same room, so naturally this virtual thing actually helps them to bridge the divide.
Sorry for the interruption.
Right.
Hello.
So, yes,
there are a lot of questions posted in the chat box. So
yeah.
we'll mail you all the questions already posted. So and after getting the answer, we'll post in the YouTube channel of our RMK Engineering College website.
Sure,
now
sure. That works for me.
Yeah, thank you. Now I invite Professor Dr. Blessing Shiba to propose vote of thanks.
Good morning. Good morning to one and all. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Good morning. Good morning to one and all. Saying thank you is more than good manners. It is good spirituality. I deemed it a great honor to propose vote of thanks this occasion. First of all, I would like to thank God for keeping us safe during this pandemic. Next, my hearty thanks to the guest speaker and our proud alumni, Mr. Ratnakar Rao, Senior Director, Engineering, Samsung R&D Institute, Bangalore, for gracing this webinar. Thank you, Mr. Ratnakar, for your interesting and thought-provoking address. I would like to thank our beloved Chairman, Vice Chairman, and the entire management team for their encouragement and support not only in conducting this webinar, but also in all our academic activities. I would like to express my profound gratitude to our principal, Dr. K. Muhammad Junaid, for his guidance in organizing this webinar. I would like to place on record my thanks to our advisor, Dean Research, and Academic Coordinator. I'm happy to express my gratitude to Dr. T. Suresh, Head of Department ECE, for his moral support in conducting this webinar. I would like to thank all the faculty of our department and college, both teaching and non-teaching, for their cooperation in organizing this webinar. Special thanks to the technical team behind this webinar. Finally, I would like to thank all the wonderful participants, faculty from various colleges and universities, research scholars, students, and industrial professionals who have turned up in large number for this webinar. Once again, a big thank you to one and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ratnakar. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
Very much, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much.